Top Democrats in Washington are highlighting the party's long-emerging ideological divide and its significance in future elections by betting on a special Democratic primary in Ohio, the crowded race for Biden's cabinet pick, Marcia Fudge's seat, now that she's running HUD. After starting with a crowded field, the primary, which is on August 3rd, has come down to former state senator and Bernie Sanders aide Nina Turner against Cuyahoga County Democratic Party chairwoman Shontel Brown. From the New York Times today, quote, the Congressional Black Caucus's Political Action Committee has endorsed Brown. So if Hillary Clinton and the highest-ranking member of the House, James Clyburn of South Carolina, who will be there campaigning this weekend for Ms. Brown. In turn, liberal activists around the country have rushed to Ms. Turner's defense. Her campaign has raised $4.5 million for a primary. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be knocking on doors for Nina Turner this same weekend. Mr. Clyburn will be in town. Mr. Sanders will join the fray in person the last weekend before Election Day. Joining our conversations, Niambi Carter, Associate Professor of Political Science at Howard University, and Charlotte Alter, Senior Correspondent for Time and author of the book, The Ones We've Been Waiting For. So, Dr. Carter, I'm going to start with you. I am always skeptical when from 3,000 miles away, political pundits say, this is a proxy battle and this is a battle between Sanders and Clinton or Sanders and Obama or something else like that. We heard the same thing during the Democratic primary in Georgia in 2018 with Stacey Abrams and Stacey Evans. As a political scientist, do any of these larger ideological manners, like, do they really matter to your local voters in Ohio? Aren't they just looking at who's going to be their best representative as opposed to a D.C. battle?
Absolutely. I think it matters to us, but I think when you're talking about the politics of Ohio 11, the folks there are going to be thinking about who they see on a regular basis, who's done the most for them lately, as Janet Jackson would say. And so I don't think any of these sort of questions about whether this is going to be a Sanders-Biden proxy battle are really going to hold much water with the voters of Cuyahoga County, because really those people are concerned about lots of day-to-day things that federal government just can't address. And so they're going to be thinking about who have I seen in my community, who do I know, and who knows me and who can speak to me.
And I think what's key about that, Dr. Carter, is think about it. They've had two really good representatives. You had Stephanie Tubbs-Jones, who was an icon. Then you had Marcia Fudge. She was the head of Congressional Black Caucus. So those voters are looking for somebody who can actually deliver, because that's what they've been used to. Charlotte, I want to take a look at this quote here. I want to get your thoughts. This is from the Bulwark and from Tim Swift and Tim Miller. As a result of Turner's Bernie boosterism, online discussion of the race has broken down along the same Democratic internal fissures that were apparent during the last two presidential primaries. For folks in the very online left, it feels like Groundhog Day. This special election will be the latest test of progressive muscle following a series of face plants, beginning with Bernie's collapse in the 2020 primary and extending to the failures in the Virginia gubernatorial and New York City mayoral primaries this year. I got to ask you, and maybe I'm just being sort of cynical here, you know, again, is anybody in Ohio City, in Tremont, in Bedford, are they thinking about the New York City race? I mean, is that the kind of thing you think really matters to people locally?
Well, I think, you know, building off of what Dr. Carter said, which I completely agree with, there's really two Democratic parties here. There's two visions of Democratic politics here. There's the vision that's trying to actually win races on the ground, in which you are actually, you know, deeply concerned with what voters in Cuyahoga County are looking for and who they feel best represents them. And then there's the battle for the narrative of what the future of the party might be. And unfortunately for progressives right now, the last couple years, they've made a lot of progress on that second rung, where they have been able to really kind of shape the conversation in real ways and force politicians to talk about issues that they hadn't been talking about, force the contours of debate open so that things like canceling student debt, things like Medicare for all are now on the table. But they have not been as successful at actually putting points on the board. So I think this is one more test of, you know, whether some of those ideas that do very well in these online discussions, that do very well in these kind of theoretical spaces, actually win votes in places where it matters for Democrats.
And Dr. Carter, we've seen that, right? There's an obscene amount of money being raised, both by the Turner campaign and the Brown campaign. And we're seeing such high-level people going in. We've got James Clyburn, who's known as sort of the closer. He's coming in. You had surrogates from Nina Turner, the rapper and activist Killer Mike, criticize Clyburn. He's coming in. Bernie Sanders is coming in. You had pastors doing a press conference about mudslinging on Monday. I guess my question is a victory even possible for either side? If former State Senator Turner wins, does that necessarily mean that the progressive wing, I mean, maybe you get an additional member of the squad, but that's not going to change the Democratic Party. And if Brown wins, does that necessarily mean that the centrists have won? I mean, what's a victory look like for either side?
Well, I think the thing that the Democrats are thinking about is who's really a Democrat at the end of the day. And I think there's some real concern for some that Nina Turner is running as a Democrat, but really is not a Democrat, right? That she wants to be either a third party or wants to undo the party. And I agree with Charlotte that I'm not sure that anybody wins here, quite frankly, because the party needs to really decide who it wants to be moving forward. And they can't please every constituency. And I think that right now, the reason you have Clyburn and others showing up is because there's a wing of the party that does not want to be pushed further left. They view it as, undermining their efforts to win, particularly in places like Ohio that are becoming increasingly red, and they have to win moderate whites of both parties. And so they view people like Nina Turner or the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as dangerous to those longer term ends of winning national elections. But I think, at the end of the day, the party is in a real pinch. They have to be a party of the next century. And clearly, a lot of what they are talking about on the progressive side is resonating with a lot of younger voters. Unfortunately, those same younger voters are unreliable, and this is going to be a summer race. And those people may not show up in the same way that if we want to use it, more traditional Democrats who are more moderate and who tend to be older will, quite frankly.
And I want to close with this, Dr. Carter. I think this is key. A lot of the polling has shown, there was a poll by the Turner campaign that showed her she had 50% lead a month ago. A latest poll that came out, an internal poll from the Brown campaign that says now the race is down to about a 6-point race. My skepticism when I look at any of these polls is they've got undecideds in anywhere from 15 to 23%. As an academic and a scholar, any poll that's got that many undecideds isn't reliable. Where do you think those voters are likely to go? If you're still saying you're undecided 2 weeks out, what are you really likely to do at this point?
I think people are going to go with what they know. And that's not a knock against Nina Turner, because Nina Turner is a well-respected politician. She's proven herself to be pragmatic. I think she knows Ohioans and knows Ohioans well. But I would say Shontel Brown is the person that they know most recently, that they've seen most recently, who's consistently been in the state of Ohio, because Nina Turner's had these great opportunities to really expand the base and her voice. But I do think at the end of the day, voters might go for what they know. And even with all of these celebrity endorsements, that may not be enough to push people one way or the other.
I just hope they don't end up staying home. Dr. Niambi Carter and Charlotte Alter, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.